Episode 141 of the State of the Old Republic podcast was originally recorded on February 21st, 2026. It's the State of the Old Republic podcast. This week on the show, there are 7 days left in February, which means the February Developer Livestream should be on one of them. We just don't know which one yet. While we wait to find out, I'll recap the SWTOR roadmap for 2026. Also this week, Moddable gear is one of SWTOR's signature features, but does it still have a place in the game? I'll explore the state of moddable gear. And with that, it's time to make the jump to Lightspeed.
And cue the moron.
Welcome to episode 141 of the State of the Old Republic podcast. I'm your host, Ted, and as you heard in the opening, I have another great show lined up for you today. With the next developer livestream for Game Update 7.8.1, hopefully just around the corner, this felt like the right moment to give everyone a clean, grounded recap of the 2026 roadmap, a kind of state of the galaxy before the news cycle spins up again. Now, if you've been following the show, none of this will be brand new. We've talked through the roadmap before, we've unpacked the producer letter, and we've speculated, responsibly, about what 8.0 might look like. And honestly, 2026 is shaping up to be a pivotal year for SWTOR. 15 years of this game, a new expansion on the horizon, and a full calendar of story, seasons, and system updates that will carry us right into 8.0. So let's walk through what we know. The first big moment of the year is coming up fast, the February Developer Livestream. This is the one where the team has promised to talk about the year ahead, the 15-year anniversary, the direction of the story, and yes, the first real hints about 8.0. It's not an expansion reveal, but it is the moment where the studio sets expectations. Think of it as the overture before the symphony. The themes show up here first. And because this live stream lands right before the next patch, it's also the hinge between what we've been doing in 7.8 and where the game is headed next. The first update of the year is 7.8.1, titled Master's Enigma. This patch continues the current storyline, adds Galactic Season 10, and brings 2 new date night missions to the game, Torian Kadera and Kira Carson this time around. It's also worth noting that Master's Enigma is a major story beat in its own right. It's arriving slightly off-cycle, a necessary adjustment after the delays caused by the voice actor strike, and it serves as the bridge that gets the game's narrative cadence back on track. It is the penultimate story for Legacy of the Sith, and hopefully we'll start seeing more answers and fewer questions. Then we move into spring, and this is where the year's narrative arc really comes into focus. Game Update 7.9, titled Legacy Reborn, isn't just another chapter. It's the conclusion of the Legacy of the Sith era. The devs have described it as the beginning of the next story era, and they've hinted at quite the shakeup across the galaxy. Where Master's Enigma gets us back on schedule, Legacy Reborn is the capstone. It's the moment where the threads of Legacy of the Sith finally tie off, and the stage is cleared for whatever comes next. We'll also see PvP Season 10, but the real headline here is narrative closure and the promise of a new beginning. Moving into summer, we get 7.9.1, which brings Galactic Season 11. Traditionally, these .1 patches are lighter, but this one is really light, and I think we all know why that is. And that, of course, is so the developers can focus on the big one, 8.0. This is the 15-year anniversary expansion, the milestone update the team will be working on all year. We don't have a title yet, we don't have a feature list, but we do know that 8.0 is meant to be a defining moment. Historically, SWTOR expansions shift the story and they update the systems, and at this point in the game's life, an expansion is also a reintroduction. It's the moment where lapsed players peek back in, where the marketing ramps up, and where the game gets to say, here's who we are now. We'll learn more throughout the year, live streams, PTS cycles, blog posts, but 8.0 is the gravitational center of the roadmap. So what does this all add up to? A few things stand out. First, cadence. The roadmap shows a continuation of the predictable quarterly rhythm players have come to expect since Game Update 7.2.1. That patch quietly reestablished SWTOR's modern update tempo, and 2026 continues that pattern. Second, narrative ambition. The phrase next story era isn't something the team uses lightly. It signals a shift in tone, stakes, or structure, the kind of pivot we've only seen a handful of times in SWTOR's lifespan. And as exciting as 8.0 sounds, we mustn't forget that we're getting the conclusion to the Legacy of the Sith storyline. It's going to end. The mysteries, the conflicts, all of it. And third, player expectations. A 15-year anniversary expansion is a milestone moment. It brings hype, scrutiny, and hopefully a wave of returning players. And that means the team has to balance nostalgia with forward momentum. And finally, for us, for this show, it means we're entering a year where the story, the systems, and the community are all going to be in motion. There's going to be a lot to talk about. So that's the roadmap as we know it today. I can't wait to watch the 781 live stream. This is where the year really begins. And once it airs, I'll be back with a full breakdown of whatever new details emerge. Until then, enjoy the calm before the content storm. When Star Wars The Old Republic launched back in 2011, it arrived with a bold idea, one that quietly set it apart from other MMOs of its era. Instead of forcing you to discard your favorite weapon or armor set every few levels, SWTOR let you keep them. If you found a lightsaber at level 10 that felt perfect, the color, the hilt, the vibe, you could carry it all the way to level 50 and beyond. The trick was moddable gear. You didn't replace the item, you replaced the components inside it. It was a system built around continuity and identity. It let players maintain a sense of personal style while keeping up with the game's stat progression. And for a long time, it was one of SWTOR's defining features, a way to say, this is my character and this is my look without sacrificing power. But over the years, SWTOR has changed, the game has evolved, and now, 14 years later, it's worth asking, does moddable gear still have a meaningful role in SWTOR, or is it time for the game to move on? The first major shift came with the Outfit Designer, a system that fundamentally changed how players interacted with gear. Suddenly, your appearance and your stats were completely separate. You could wear anything you wanted cosmetically, a Jedi robe, Mandalorian armor, or a pirate outfit, while your actual stats lived on a completely different set of gear underneath. And with that change, moddable gear lost its monopoly on player expression, at least where armor was concerned. For many years, weapons were not part of that system. Players still relied on mods to keep their favorite weapon of choice. That, of course, changed with Legacy of the Sith. And when it did, the emotional core of the system, the idea that you could carry your favorite weapon and wear your favorite armor forever, had been replaced by something more powerful and more flexible. The Outfit Designer solved the cosmetic problem moddable gear was originally built to address. Moddable gear now served one purpose only: stat flexibility. Legacy of the Sith didn't just add weapons to the outfitter, it brought a major philosophical shift in how SWTOR handles gear. As of today, the highest rated gear in the game, the gear progression players actually chase, is now static gear. No mod slots, no barrels or hilts, no enhancements to swap, just gear. You get it? You stick an augment in it, equip it, and off you go. And here's the thing. The stat flexibility that moddable gear offers isn't limited by static gear. Min-maxing your stats is possible. Static gear in SWTOR isn't locked to a specific targeter or bolt blaster identity. You can mix and match freely. The game doesn't care what role the piece was intended for, only what stats it carries. If you're a DPS mercenary and you want healer boots because they have the stat distribution you need, you can wear them. Now, min-maxing with static gear does take more planning. You need to identify your ideal stat mix and then identify the specific armor pieces needed for your build. With moddable gear, you just need to find an enhancement with a stat you need and put it in whatever piece you want. Nonetheless, the idea that moddable gear is the only way to fine-tune your build isn't true. Even leveling has shifted. Some of the best leveling gear in the entire game comes from planetary heroics, and it's all static. You don't need mods, you don't need vendors, you just run those missions and get upgrades. In a lot of ways, the game's natural progression path has already left moddable gear behind. So, does moddable gear still have a role? At least for now, the developers seem to think so. As Legacy of the Sith progressed and the gear system was upgraded, rather than phase out moddable gear, the developers made it an integral part of the endgame gear system when they introduced hide and seek. Hide and seek give players access to high-quality armorings, mods, and enhancements. A set built with their top-tier mods and enhancements are equivalent to 340 Rakata gear, which at one point was the highest-rated gear in the game. For a huge portion of the player base, hide and seek became the default gearing path. If you weren't raiding or you didn't want to chase weekly drops, you went to hide and seek. You unlocked their vendor, and suddenly you had access to some of the best gear in the game. And it only cost credits. You could use a single character to gear up your entire legacy. And that meant one thing. Hide and seek kept the moddable system relevant. They steered players toward it. They made it convenient. But they also highlight the tension. The game has moved towards static gear, yet some of the best gear in the game was still tied to a moddable system that otherwise feels increasingly out of step with the rest of SWTOR's design. Moddable gear is part of SWTOR's original DNA, but the game has evolved, and the question now is whether nostalgia alone justifies the ongoing complexity. Maintaining two parallel gear systems splits attention. If SWTOR wants to modernize, consolidating systems frees up resources for encounter design, class balance, and quality of life improvements. Every hour spent maintaining moddable gear is an hour not spent improving the game elsewhere. Of course, in order to get to that point, man-hours are needed to cleanly remove the system from the game. So what would it take to remove moddable gear? Removing moddable gear isn't as simple as flipping a switch. Every fleet, planet, and story hub has vendors dedicated to selling mods. If moddable gear disappears, these vendors would either vanish or need to sell static gear with similar stats. Crafting would also be affected. Many crew skills produce armorings, mods, and hilts. Removing mods means updating or removing recipes and ensuring crafters still have meaningful products, though mod crafting profitability is uncertain these days. Then there's the gear itself. Thousands of moddable items exist, and removing mod slots from all of them could be a massive technical challenge. Some items might need conversion, retirement, or replacement with static versions. A major concern is current player gear. Many players rely on hide and seek for their sets. If mod slots vanish, what happens to those carefully assembled gear sets? One solution might be granting every level 80 character a free set of 340 or 342 gear, assuming the level cap increases and there are new tiers of gear in 8.0 that would soon replace the old gear. I don't know what the best solution is, but I do know that players can't simply be stripped of their gear without a replacement plan. Then there's the Victorious Pioneer set, moddable armor with a 50% XP bonus, a legacy reward, and a badge of honor. If moddable gear is removed, Broadsword should offer a replacement, perhaps a tactical item granting the XP bonus. This preserves the reward, keeps the bonus functional, and avoids the technical headache of maintaining moddable slots just for one legacy item. SWTOR is at a crossroads. Moddable gear was brilliant in 2011. It solved real problems. It gave players identity and flexibility at a time when MMOs didn't offer much of either. But in 2026, the game has new systems, an outfit designer that handles both armor and weapons, and static gear has the flexibility to let players min-max. The question for 8.0 isn't whether moddable gear can stay, it's whether it still earns its place in a game that has evolved far beyond the purpose it was built to support. And if 8.0 is meant to be a fresh era, maybe this is the moment to decide. A few things before I let you go today. There's been an update to the Join the Fight bundle. It's now called the Continue the Fight bundle, and this one features a new mount, the K-Norco D3M. It's a beautiful black and red with a flaming engine, and it's rideable at level 1. And it replaces the K-Norco B5C mount, which is now retired. The rest of the bundle is the same. You get 60 days of subscription time and 2,400 cartel coins, and it costs $39.99. Just to put that in perspective, a 60-day subscription by itself will cost you $30, and 2,400 cartel coins will cost you $20. That's $50 worth of stuff plus the mount for $40. And don't forget, there is also the Enter the Fight bundle for $14.99. It includes a 30-day subscription, 1,050 cartel coins, and the Aerotech S15 speeder bike, which is rideable at level 1 and has a firing cannon's flourish. Also, back in Update 7.8c, a few new items were added to the cartel market, all inspired by Star Wars Visions on Disney+. One of those items is the Shadow Sentry armor set, and this one looks amazing. It's a low-cut, high-boots outfit, probably better suited for female characters, especially Twi'leks, but it's also good on some male characters as well. Just not Skadge. I saw an image that someone posted of Skadge wearing this outfit, and unfortunately, it's not something that I can unsee. Lastly, I'm going to do my best to get out episode 142 soon, trademark. It'll be a recap of the 781 live stream. But 2026 isn't just a pivotal year for Star Wars The Old Republic, it's a pivotal year for me. I'm in the process of moving. I'll be in my new place by the beginning of March, and out of my old place, well, not at the same time. And on top of that, I'm planning to retire from my job in May. Yay me. A lot of crazy stuff that may slow me down a bit when it comes to getting out episodes. My goal moving forward is 2 to 3 episodes a month. I do enjoy doing it, and believe it or not, this year will mark the 10th anniversary of this podcast. Now, obviously, some years have been more episode heavy than others. When I started out, I envisioned this being a weekly podcast, and it did start out that way, but you don't have to be an astrophysicist to know that if I had been doing this weekly all along, I'd be on episode 500 and something and not 141. I'm excited for this year, though, both for the game and for things going on in my life outside the game. And that's the State of the Old Republic for today. Let me cut in the sublight engines and cue the music and congratulate you on surviving another half hour listening to episode 141 of the State of the Old Republic podcast. I'm your host, Ted, and I thank you for tuning in. You can find this podcast on Buzzsprout and iTunes and wherever else you find your podcasts. I'm also back to putting these on YouTube. You can listen to the show directly from the show's site, which is SWTORpodcast.com, and there is an RSS feed where you can subscribe to the podcast directly. If you have a question for the show, you can email me at SWTORpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, remember the Sith code, cake is alive.